Peggy 18.
Hello? Sebastian, are you there?
Lily?
What are you thinking about?
Lily. Everything that's happening in here is because of her.
She's still a sweet little girl.
I hope so. She's the real victim here.
You are here for me, Dad. It's all your fault. You are a failure. Close your eyes to the truth.
You want to stop me, but you have failed.
I've got to find her before he does something terrible to her.
There's an ordinary world somehow I have to find. And as I try to make my way to the ordinary world, I will learn to survive.
Welcome back to IGN Live at E3. Last night, Bethesda held its press conference and revealed The Evil Within 2, which is set to welcome us in on Friday, October 13th. Lucy O'Brien and I are ready to see more. Here to walk us through the horror is Bethesda's Pete Hines.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to this show.
No tequila for us.
Dan.
I'm so disappointed.
Too early in the day, and I think we're all probably a little too tired for tequila shots right now.
Tequila's just what you need when you're too tired. Lucy, you reviewed the first Evil Within.
I did review the first Evil Within, and I'm very, very excited for the sequel. How long has it been in development for?
I mean, basically since the first one. You remember they did some of the DLC, the extra stuff with Kidman, but you had some amount of the team working on that, and others going ahead and starting with, like, what do we want to do for the sequel? What's it going to be like? So it's been in development, really, in some way, shape, or form since the first one came out.
Right, and Shinji Mikami, who directed the first one, is executive producing on this one.
Yep. His hands are all over it.
His hands are all over it. That's all I want to hear.
Yeah,
I want to hear that it's been molded.
Yeah, it's his studio. And he's still Shinji. And so yeah, what it does and how it looks and how it plays still has Shinji's hands all over it.
So what are we seeing right here?
This is a look at the world of the Evil Within 2. The basic setup is that Sebastian has been pulled back in. It's set a little bit after the events of the Evil Within. Sebastian is basically, his life has completely fallen to crap. He's lost his wife. He's become an alcoholic. Nobody believes the events that took place at the asylum as he describes them. And your old partner Kidman comes back to let you know that your daughter is still alive and that you need to go into STEM, which is this kind of virtual reality world, to try and save her. And this is just some of the parts that you'll be finding and trying to explore as you look for your daughter. Horrifying things to come up against, standing in between you and getting your daughter back, who you thought was dead.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Now, this is a new setting called Union.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So the idea in The Evil Within is there's this corporation called Mobius, and Mobius believes in using technology to sort of connect the consciousness of people. And what they've done is they took your daughter who was dead, and they've got to sort of put her at the center of STEM and creating this other world. And that other world is called Union. It's a town called Union, and that's ultimately where you sort of have to transport yourself to, and then search through and try and find your daughter. So it's going to be a combination of interior and exterior spaces. One of the things in the game is that the world kind of will warp and change as you move through it, because it's not real. It's all kind of collective consciousness. So it changes a lot. And one of the big things is, Lucy, you reviewed The Evil Within. It was pretty linear. There's some places where you sort of could decide how you were going to handle a situation, but there's no side quest. There was no branching off and doing other stuff. Evil Within 2 brings a lot more of that. So there'll be places where you can pick up side quests, not necessarily story related, but more about finding those additional resources you need. Resources are really scarce in The Evil Within. That's true again in The Evil Within 2, but there's more opportunity for the player to kind of decide, I need to go get some more ammo or some more things to do some crafting, and I'm going to go off and do some side missions or explore around to get some of those things before I kind of proceed down the main path. Or you could just blast straight down the main path if that's what you want to do, but you do get rewarded for exploring other places or doing some of these quests for people you find in Union along the way.
Would you still say this is primarily a survival horror game?
It's 100% still a survival horror game. There's definitely going to be action and there's definitely going to be combat, but it's not a shooter. You don't just have loads of ammo to mow down stuff. You can use stealth, you can use combat, you can sort of figure out how you're going to move through situation and when you want to use those resources, but it is at its core a pure survival horror game.
Great.
Now, Sebastian has a new tool in The Evil Within 2 called the Communicator.
Yep.
This is what you're currently calling it, at least.
Yep.
Where he can communicate with Julie Kidman, who, of course, starred in the original and in the DLC. What does that open up in terms of gameplay?
Basically, because you've been sent to this other place called Union, Kidman is kind of providing both some narrative for you in terms of she is working with Mobius, as you find out in the first game, spoiler alert. And so she's able to provide some context for you in terms of what's going on as you try and find out what's going on in Union, as you try and get to your daughter and hopefully extract the both of you out of Union back into the real world. She's sort of that connective tissue that's providing advice, providing updates on things that are going on that you might not be aware of, that kind of thing.
That sounds great. Is it going to be like the reveal trailer last night,
which we're seeing here,
which we're seeing right now? Obviously, it was quite it messed with my head, as the original Evil Within did.
Yep.
And I think the story has always been a little bit Jacob's Ladder-esque in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
That's
always
fair
like
enough.
I'm not sure what's reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what's real, what's not. Are the themes going to be very? Are they going to be similar? You know, the sort of sense of reality distorting.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think there's that sort of being off balance, that you're never entirely sure what's going on, that you see something and then suddenly it's not there. You walk through a door and you're in completely different reality. You walk through a door into a room and then you turn around and that wall has changed to something else. That's sort of like keeping the player off balance. You know, one of the things in the Evil Within, I'm sure you remember, is audio cues and the sound and music become incredibly important in a game like this, creating that sort of atmosphere that the player is immersed in, and so using that as well to kind of keep the player off balance. You know, when music stings, when you think something is about to happen and actually nothing happens, or the absence of sound effects before something happens. Really, you know, oh, I thought I was going to hear something and instead this thing just came out of nowhere. So I think it's combining all of those things to keep the player off kilter a little bit, but using that story and maybe some stronger character and narrative than the previous Evil Within to really kind of pull the player through in a more personal way, right? The first Evil Within was about a detective trying to figure out what the hell's going on, but your motivation is kind of, well, I'm just going to see what happens next. But here, you've got a little bit more of this connective tissue of, I'm trying to find my daughter who I thought was dead and get her out of here. It tends to pull you through the game in a more compelling way, I think, than you had in the first one.
Now, one of the things people really like about Bethesda and your conferences is that you have a tendency to announce games that are coming very soon.
Yeah.
Evil Within 2 is coming on Friday, October 13th. It's a pretty appropriate release date.
Friday the 13th just seemed too easy to pass up. So, yeah, we're very excited. And as you said, that really was a theme for us for last night across everything, was we really wanted to talk about stuff, all of which that was coming out this year. And Evil Within 2 is no different, only a few months away.
I'm very excited to find out a little bit more about the antagonists, both the overarching antagonist of the Evil Within 2 and the minute-to-minute enemies that you're going to face. I mean, are they going to be returning from the Evil Within? Are there going to be surprises in store?
Well, certainly surprises in store. You get a little glimpse of one of them. You're in this mansion with all of the pictures on the wall, and you see him kill the military guy, and the rose petals come out of his body. His name is Stefano, and he is this really... how would Shinji want me to describe him?
Is that a question you ask yourself a lot?
Perverse, yes. He's this really perverse, twisted artist who really sort of celebrates and tries to capture the beauty of death and pain and stuff. And so his mansion is this really bizarre, twisted place. And you see a little glimpse in the trailer of Obscura, who is kind of his sidekick, the sort of walking, living camera, old school camera, creepy lady, who like takes pictures of his art and his works of art, which is basically different ways that he's killed people or if people have died or whatever. So I think characters like that will definitely provide some sort of new twists and new personality. And then whether there's going to be any folks coming back from the first one, we'll have to wait and see.
Sure. The first one was a pretty gory game. Is the sequel also a pretty gory game?
I mean, certainly you see from some of the gameplay, there's some pretty grotesque-looking creatures that you're going to be facing throughout the world, who, again, to kind of the point that Lucy was raising, they're more about, like, the manifestation of things as opposed to, like, what is that thing? Like, well, it's not really a thing. It's kind of how it's been manifested into a thing, whether it's a zombie or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of variety in terms of what those experiences are, from like some pretty gross, violent, bloody stuff. I mean, some people die pretty badly, and it's pretty grotesque. But it's not like Saw, right? It's not meant to be like right. It's not supposed to be like a blood sport thing. It's supposed to be, you know, scary and intense. And you were asking before, like, it's definitely a survival horror game. But if you're not into horror, this is still a game you might enjoy if you just enjoy like kind of action and appreciate that intensity and kind of the decision making and the exploration and so forth. And you know, again, what we hope is a really compelling, interesting story that we think folks will enjoy, even if you're not into survival horror, that you might appreciate what's going on, because it's not just trying to be really gross and bloody and grotesque.
Sure.
In terms of Sebastian's arsenal, obviously the Evil Within has never been primarily about combat at all, but he does have some ways of defending himself. Is his skill set going to have evolved at all, or should we expect more of the same?
Yeah, it's. I think we've tried to maybe do a little bit more this time around with crafting and sort of the ability to get resources that you then decide, what am I going to use these resources to create? Like, is it more important for me to try and create ammo, or is it more important for me to try and create something else that might be of use, and giving the player the power to kind of do those things, as opposed to like, well, I put 2 bullets on that desk, and so I hope you need bullets because that's what I left. If you needed something else, like, well, I guess you're SOL. So doing a little bit more with crafting and allow the player to kind of make those decisions for themselves. What do I need right now? And again, as I was talking about the non-linearity, like having those open areas where going off on these side things to find more resources becomes an important player choice in terms of, do you want to go do that? Do you need more resources? Or like, nah, I'm good. Like, I kind of have what I need for the way that I'm playing the game. Sure.
Yeah, all of the crafting, the side quests, that sounds very appealing to me. You know, you established the world and these characters with the first game. Is there anything that, you know, you guys wanted to do with the first game that you couldn't quite fit it in, that you were able to include this time around?
I think you see some of that in terms of, Lucy, you played the DLCs as well, right?
I played all the DLCs,
and one of the things that I think we saw from fans was they really enjoyed, even more so, I think, the story and kind of the way that those played out versus the main game. They had a lot more context to them, and they felt a little bit more like relatable. And I think that was something that, you know, out of those DLCs, they wanted to bring to the second one, to the full game. Like, these are the kinds of things that really resonated with people. You know, even in the portrayal of Sebastian, I think in some respects, even myself, Sebastian is a little bit of a-hole in the first game, right? Like, he's not really sympathetic.
Poor Sebastian.
And so in this game, I think they've tried to sort of give the context and humanize him a little bit more, like as a father, as a husband who's kind of lost everything and sort of lost his way. He's a lot more relatable, I think, than the first one. And so little things like that might not seem like, well, we wanted to have, like, I don't know, giant bombers fly in, and now we have giant bombers. It's more about like expanding story, expanding character, adding a little bit more diversity, adding some more player choice, kind of looking at what folks enjoyed in the first one, and then stuff that they said, well, I wish there was a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, to kind of use those opportunities to bring more of that into the sequel.
How do you sustain, we had this conversation during the Bethesda post-show last night, how you sustain a horror game without exhausting the player. Because a lot of the more sort of aggressive horror experiences tend to be shorter because it's not sustainable, right? For sure. So how do you balance that kind of cadence in a horror game where the player still feels like survival is possible, but they're also scared out of their brains?
It's a great question, and it's definitely a big challenge, because like there's a certain point at which intensity simply becomes too much. I mean, you can even see it in a game like Doom, where you do need moments, even just in a shooter, where if it was just that all the time, you need a little downtime or before you get into the next one, and even that much more for a survival horror game. And I think the way that you do that is by not having it just be sort of A to B, B to C, C to D, kind of straight through, but offering opportunities for the player to do some things that aren't maybe always going to be super intense or like scary or frightening or gory, that allow you to kind of progress as a player without constantly throwing stuff at you every minute and every second, and giving the player at least a little bit of a chance to like catch their bearings, catch their breath, and say like, okay, like I got my health back up, and you know, I kind of gathered back up. You know, maybe you're trying to sneak through an area and it all went pear-shaped, and all of a sudden you used up all the rest of the ammo that you have. Like, you need that time to be able to say, like, I need to sort of like catch my breath. Holy crap, that was intense. I almost died, but like I'm still alive and I still got all my parts, and like I've got my health back and I got some ammo. Okay, I'm ready to deal with whatever the hell is waiting for me next. So finding that balance, it's a lot of play testing and tweaking, and honestly, it's a lot of Shinji. Like, you know, you want to know where he's involved and how he's involved. It's in those things, and understanding like when to pull the lever back a little bit on the intensity and when to say like, okay, they're ready, or the player might think we're at, you know, at 10 on the intensity scale, but I'm going to take it up another notch by adding this thing. Those are really what take a good game and make it great.